The first mistake wasn't the shove. It was the laugh, a hollow, sharp-edged cackle from a cocky young fighter in a compression shirt, standing under the heat lamps of a high-end MMA camp in Southern California. They were filming a segment for his upcoming title bout, a promo shoot. Some light pad work, some ego shots, and then Jason Statham walked in, unannounced. No camera crew, no entourage, just boots, calm eyes, and a scar across his jaw like punctuation. The room noticed, but the fighter, Rory Kane, took it personally. He was 29, undefeated, and already sponsored by 3 energy drinks and a gambling app. To him, Jason wasn't a man, he was a prop, something to make him look better on camera. So he turned to the crew and asked, loud enough for the room to hear, why they were letting movie actors into real gyms. Jason didn't blink, didn't respond, he just stepped closer. That's when Rory Kane made his first real move. He dropped his gloves, smirked, took a slow step toward Jason and told the coach he'd be happy to give him a free trial round. The gym erupted with nervous laughter, but one man in the corner, an older trainer with a sleeve tattoo and cauliflower ears, went quiet, because he'd heard that posture before. He'd seen it in blacksite rings years ago, before Jason disappeared. Jason entered the cage with no gloves, no stance, just breathe. Rory clapped his hands, circled him, and played it for the camera. Said he was going to show everyone what Hollywood hands really looked like. The bell never rang. Rory launched first, a fast kick meant to tap the leg and embarrass. Jason shifted 1 inch. The kick missed. So Rory advanced, right elbow feint to double jab, textbook pressure sequence. Jason walked into it, and Rory's own momentum folded on contact. He stumbled. The room got quiet. Jason hadn't struck, hadn't touched, just moved through. Rory reset, annoyed but not rattled, not yet. He tried again. Clinch entry, shoulder lock-up. Jason tilted his hip, redirected the force like a magician, folding air, and placed Rory on his knee. Not slammed, just corrected, the kind of correction you never forget. Rory stood slower this time. The coach motioned to stop it. Jason waved him off. He wasn't done yet, and Rory, he hadn't realized he'd stopped smiling. In the far corner, the old trainer leaned in, whispered to a younger fighter beside him. That man built half the system Rory trains in. The kid asked, like the technique. The old man shook his head. No, I mean the actual training philosophy. The Black SEAL curriculum. That ghost they mention in the manuals. That's him. Rory shot for a takedown. Jason didn't move. He let the grip land, then shifted his weight after the hold, and Rory collapsed. It didn't hurt, but something inside his chest turned cold, because Jason still hadn't raised his hands, and now the gym wasn't laughing. They were watching in silence. That's when Rory rolled to his feet and said the one thing he shouldn't have. If you're so dangerous, why'd you disappear? Jason stopped walking, and Rory finally saw the fire behind the silence. Rory's question didn't echo, it hung, like smoke. If you're so dangerous, why'd you disappear? Jason didn't reply, but something shifted in the cage, not in his stance, not in his breathing, in the air. Even the camera guy stopped filming. Because when a man like Jason doesn't answer, it usually means you just unlocked something buried. Rory laughed, trying to take the moment back, trying to own the silence he just shattered. But the older trainer at the edge of the cage, he didn't laugh. He'd seen this version of Jason once before. At a military-funded fight test in Berlin, 12 fighters entered. Jason walked through all of them, didn't throw a punch above the collarbone, didn't raise his voice, just exposed flaws. It wasn't violence. It was truth, delivered faster than anyone could defend. And when it was over, Jason walked away and erased his name from every record he ever touched. Because the system started treating people like targets, not students. And Jason trained warriors, not weapons. Back in the cage, Rory moved again. Faster now, frustrated, furious. A blur of fists aimed for Jason's jaw, ribs, thigh, textbook combinations fueled by pride. Jason didn't block, didn't even counter. He simply rotated his body, letting every strike slide past its intended point of contact, an inch off, a beat late. It looked like a glitch in the fight engine. Rory wasn't missing because of bad aim. He was being rewritten in real time. Then Jason stepped in. One clean pivot, one touch behind Rory's shoulder blade, and Rory spun himself into the cage wall again. No hit, just geometry. Rory's knuckles scraped the chain links as he caught himself. And finally, he started to breathe heavy, not from exhaustion, from fear. because no one had ever done this to him, not in camp, not in title fights. No one had ever made him feel like he didn't belong in the cage. Jason had done it in under 2 minutes. Then it happened. Jason stepped back and tilted his head just slightly, as if waiting. Rory charged again, desperate now. He threw everything: spinning kick, double jab, fake level change. Jason accepted it, and at the perfect moment, Jason caught Rory's own forward step and used it to place him on the ground again, but this time face down. The crowd gasped. It wasn't a slam, it wasn't a submission, it was a gesture, like putting a book back on the shelf. The older coach exhaled, because he knew what was coming next. Jason wasn't just proving a point. He was reminding the room that greatness doesn't need to announce itself. It just needs to wake up once. And Rory finally saw it. This wasn't just an actor. This wasn't just a man. This was the original code. The root system he'd unknowingly trained under his entire career. The man whose name was whispered in old gyms but never confirmed. Some said Jason had once ended a match with a single body angle, collapsing a lung without throwing a punch. Others said he left the sport because he saw what it was becoming: ego over precision, fame over form. And now, face down, breathing into the mat, Rory understood why Jason left. But what haunted him more was the fact that Jason came back and didn't even need to try. Curious what he did then. Well, before we continue, if you love to hear Legends tales, or if you're just a die-hard Jason Statham fan who respects hard-earned justice, then we would love to invite you to hit that subscribe button now, because this is where stories like his live. We don't do fluff. We do justice, grit, and the kind of moments that stay with you. Back to the story. The mat felt colder than it should have. Rory Kane pressed his palms to the floor, trying to convince himself it was just sweat, just adrenaline, just another fluke round in another stupid exhibition. But his hands were shaking, because every time he lunged, Jason didn't meet him with resistance. He met him with clarity. Every failed strike was a lesson, every collapse a mirror. And the worst part, Jason still hadn't touched him with force, just footwork, weight, gravity. Like the earth itself was against Rory now. He got up slower. No more showboating, no more trash talk. Now, there was only the kind of silence that comes when you realize you might not be the main character anymore. Jason paced slowly, hands down, head tilted, breathing even. A ghost with weight, a man who never needed permission to dominate. Rory's coach barked something from outside the cage, something about keeping composure, but Rory couldn't hear him, because Jason stepped forward, one clean, deliberate step, and everything around Rory narrowed. There was no crowd, no camera, no cage, just him and the man who was slowly rewriting his instincts. Rory swung, sloppy now, emotion bleeding through. Jason dipped under the strike, closed distance, and for the first time Jason made contact, a palm strike to the ribs. Controlled. Sharp, no power, just data, and Rory folded, not in pain, in realization, because the moment Jason touched him, his body froze, his back leg twitched, his balance crumbled, he couldn't breathe right. His entire nervous system had just been mapped and corrected. The gym went still. Someone in the back whispered, "He's not here to win, he's here to unmake." And that's when it happened. Jason looked Rory in the eye, and Rory saw a flash of something familiar. A story his first coach told him back when Rory was just 17, all rage and no rhythm. His coach had warned him, there's one man you don't chase, one man who doesn't fight for pride or points or prize money. If you ever see him enter a room and not blink, leave. Jason hadn't blinked since he entered. Rory backed up instinctively, almost tripping. Jason didn't follow. He just lowered his stance, not into a guard but into something more ancient, not MMA. Combat geometry. Rory recognized it, not from training, but from an old video he was never supposed to see. A leaked clip from a Balkan training op where a man, face blurred, dismantled 4 soldiers in under 30 seconds without throwing a single punch. A man codenamed Chisel. That video was scrubbed from every platform, but Rory had saved it, watched it on loop. He thought it was fake. Now. That man was standing in front of him, same movement, same precision, same silence. Jason stepped in again, not to finish Rory, to teach him. He redirected Rory's next punch with a downward wrist capture and dropped him to one knee gently, like a teacher showing a new angle. Then he whispered something only Rory could hear, something that froze his blood, because it wasn't trash talk. It was the name of the coach who'd trained Rory before his death, a man Rory loved like a father, and the way Jason said it, like a promise kept, Rory didn't move. Because he realized this wasn't revenge, this wasn't ego. This was Jason coming back to fix the very system that had failed. The air in the cage had changed. It wasn't a fight anymore. It was a reckoning, and Rory Kane was finally feeling the weight of it. His chest rose and fell like a man drowning in oxygen. His hands were still up, but they were shaking, not from fatigue but from knowing, because the man in front of him wasn't a sparring partner, wasn't a celebrity cameo. Jason Statham wasn't here to entertain. He was here to correct what had gone wrong, and Rory, he was Exhibit A. Outside the cage, the gym was completely still. No pads hitting mitts, no trainers barking instructions, just a ring of silence around a man being deconstructed with surgical calm. One fighter whispered to another, "Why doesn't he finish him?" The old coach standing near the door finally spoke, "Because the goal's not to hurt him." He looked toward Rory, then back at Jason. "It's to rebuild him." Jason took one step forward, not fast, not aggressive, but enough to make Rory flinch. He wasn't afraid of the pain. He'd taken elbows to the jaw, knees to the temple. What scared him now was how little control he had left. Jason was fighting like a man who could see inside his rhythm, every beat before it dropped. That kind of dominance, it rewires you. Then came the breaking point. Jason stepped close enough that Rory had no space to throw, no room to reset. And Jason raised his hands for the first time, not to strike, but to frame Rory's stance, adjust his feet, move his elbow in. Like a coach correcting posture, Rory froze, because something in him cracked, not pride, belief. For the first time, Rory Kane didn't believe he was the better fighter. He didn't believe he had control. He didn't even believe he belonged in the cage with this man. Jason placed a hand lightly on Rory's shoulder, and Rory dropped his hands, not in surrender, in acceptance, the kind that only comes when everything you've built your identity on just evaporates. Jason leaned in and whispered again. No one else heard it, but Rory nodded. Then turned, walked out of the cage, didn't say a word. He didn't storm off, didn't cry, didn't collapse. He just left, because that's what men do when they're face to face with a version of themselves they never trained for. Later that night, Rory sat alone in his apartment. Gloves on the table, phone in his hand. He opened his notes app, deleted the line that read, "Call out Statham media stunt," and in its place typed one word, "chisel." Then he scrolled through his messages, found an old contact, a forgotten number labeled only as Krakow. A camp in Poland, a place no one bragged about training at. He typed one sentence, "I need to start over. Can you help?" He stared at it for a long time before hitting send. Across the world, in a quiet London gym no one could locate on Google Maps, Jason was already training again. Alone, no mirrors, no press, just the sound of hands hitting leather and breath-shaping movement, because real fighters, they don't retire. They just go quiet until the world forgets how dangerous they really are. 3 weeks passed, no interviews, no statements, no footage released. The MMA community spun with rumors, half claiming it was staged, half claiming Jason had cheated, the other half just silent. But one thing every fighter knew: Rory Kane had vanished, not injured, not suspended, just gone. Until one grainy photo leaked from a gym in Krakow. No logo, no ring lights, just a row of fighters training barefoot in a snow-damp basement, lit by a single hanging bulb. Among them, Rory, no sponsors, no entourage, and in his hand, a small laminated card with the words, "Precision before power." The phrase wasn't from any modern system. It wasn't even in English. It was traced back to an old underground curriculum, one that Jason Statham had designed, before anyone knew his name. The curriculum was banned in 3 federations after a fighter used its philosophy in a championship bout and ended his opponent's career without ever throwing a knockout punch. That fighter was Jason. And now, Rory was learning from his ghost. Meanwhile, back in London, something strange had happened. Inside a hidden fight academy, the kind where instructors don't advertise and students don't post selfies, there was a new plaque on the wall, a metal engraving. No name, just the outline of a chisel inside a steel ring. The students called it the mark. When asked what it meant, the oldest coach in the building gave the same answer every time. "It means you're not training to fight men, you're training to walk through them." Jason hadn't returned for revenge. He hadn't returned to embarrass Rory. He came back because something fractured in the new generation, and sometimes to fix a broken pattern, you need to walk back into the cage, not with anger, with design. A few months later, Rory showed up at a quiet event in Bangkok, an unsanctioned invitational. No prize, no lights. He moved differently now, tighter, quieter, like a man who no longer fought with muscle but with truth. He won that night, but he didn't celebrate. After the fight, he slipped out the side door and disappeared into the city alone. Only one camera caught him outside, standing near a food cart, flipping something in his hand. It was a small steel pendant, a chisel. The video of Jason and Rory's sparring match never surfaced, but the legend did. Trainers started referencing the ghost method. Fighters whispered about the rewrite, and the phrase "don't chase the silence" began appearing on gym walls from Brooklyn to Seoul. They all meant one thing: if you ever face a man who doesn't raise his hands, you're already losing.